Welcome back, listeners, to the Batuta Advocate radio show, recording live out of Baxter Boots Studios in downtown Batuta. I'm Clancy and Errol, editor of the Batuta Advocate.
And my name is Errol Parker, the editor-at-large. This week on the show, we are talking to stand-up comedian and aspiring Australian historian Michael Hing.
Yes, Hingy. He's an interesting unit with a lot of fingers and a lot of pies. As a fifth-generation Chinese Australian, Hing has lived and seen many different aspects of the Asian experience in this country. From joining an Asian drug trafficking gang in high school to making a failed attempt at entering the Australian Senate with his very own One Asian Party.
And he's here today to tell us all about Season 2 of his documentary series, Where Are You Really From?
You're listening to Errol Parker and Clancy and Errol, editors of the Batuta Advocate, on Desert Rock FM. He's a stand-up comedian. He hails from the Shire, deep in the Cook electorate, where people are given the promise of Australia and where they have a go and they get a go. He's just come off the back of some low-level electoral fraud. And as a stand-up comedian, he's actually now holding the crown jewels of that particular career, which is a cushy job for the public broadcaster.
The dream, the absolute dream.
Michael Hing, thank you for joining us.
Okay, mates, how's it going?
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Now, you've been doing a lot of travelling around the country with your current program, and we'll get into this. How does it feel getting into the bush and going and seeing the outback, seeing places like Batuta? For a city kid, a deep suburban kid.
Well, my family is from places like Lightning Ridge and Walgett and Thursday Island. So I grew up, like spending a lot of time in, let's face it, some pretty rat shit places. Yeah. And I say that as someone whose grandparents lived there for a long time and had horrible lives.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Fun fact about Lightning Ridge. 3,000, I think 2,000 to 3,000 people on the census. Yeah. 9,000 people picking up their post from the post office.
Let me tell you, it is a place where people go to fucking get away from it all. Yeah. And by it all, I mean, I don't know, an ex-partner, a messy divorce, a murder trial. You know?
Yeah. And they also go there to find opals, which is, of course, a very honest trade.
No one's ever been scammed in the opal mines.
No one.
No, and you can live underground, and they do.
The most recent time I went back out to Lightning Ridge. I don't know my cousins who live out there very well. It's like 4 generations back now that the family left there to go to Walgett. So they're pretty distant cousins. One of them asked me if I met up with him. He's like 4 or 5 years younger than me. This is probably 2 or 3 years ago. And he asked me if I could help him score some meth in some Sydney meth. And I was like, oh man, you're asking the wrong dude. I can't help you. I really can't help you.
It wouldn't be that hard. I mean, you just have to ask your weed dealer. It's like, look, I know that you'd probably know someone, but can you...
Have you got another, mate?
Can you get me some shard?
It's always that question of like how many questions are you away from having access to a firearm? I mean, I imagine you guys probably 1 or 2, but for me it'd be probably I think it'd be like 3 or 4 people. You know what I mean?
You have a storied history in the Sydney criminal underworld. We did our research on you, Hing. What happened there? Growing up in Sydney, you kind of got into what was it?
I know looking at
3
me today.
Ts?
Yeah. It was the 4 Aces game.
Oh, right.
But it was a look, as a kid, I got, and I think getting caught up in the wrong crowd is like quite a trope. But also it is what happened. Yeah. I've always been this nerdy. I've always been this weird and dweeby. But for a while, I did have some friends who were in a gang, and as a result, I was also in an Asian criminal gang, which is not. Now that I think back, it's so. Like, hearing these words come out of my mouth now, it's unbelievable. Yeah. It is genuinely unbelievable. But it's like when you go to school and you just like are friends with kids due to some sort of like ethnic. Like friendship. Yeah. It's not actually out of any interest or any mutual shared interest in Pokemon or something. Mm-mm. And the result was that I for a while did some drug work.
You were employed in the drug trade.
Yes. But not international. Nothing across borders, to be clear. Within Sydney. And also, I imagine the statute of limitations on these things has expired now, so I'm fine.
Was there like an initiation process you had to go through? I mean,
did you have to get jumped?
Did you have to, like...
Although I will say that, like, getting out was much scarier because another friend of mine, his older brother got out to go to uni. He got pretty badly beaten. But I think they sensed a real weakness in me that I would not survive.
Cut him loose.
Yeah, and they were like, you know what? You're probably doing more harm than good being a part of our group.
So where was this? This was in the Shire?
No. This was sort of around Ashfield, Strathfield kind of area in Sydney, and then obviously in Chinatown and out in Cabramatta as well. But predominantly Ashfield, Strathfield kind of area. Yeah.
Now, your family, Chinese background, have been in Australia for over 100 years.
Yes.
What's it like being a weary Chinese Australian when hanging out with, like, you know, first-gen kind of Chinese kids?
Let me tell you, there is no one more racist than a sort of a 70-year-old Chinese Australian person talking about mainland Chinese people. My goodness, they have absolutely no time for these for these what they describe as mainlanders, in the most derisive term possible. There's kind of a trope now of the Chinese fuckboy. They sort of wear a lot of Supreme t-shirts, dress in a lot of Louis Vuitton, that kind of thing. The most racist I get is, you know, dealing with that kind of guy in front of me in a line and a thing, which is, I mean, I recognize that's not a great thought process, but that's who I am. But, you know, I'm sorry about that.
Well, it's not self-deprecating because they're mainlanders,
Exactly, right? So it is certainly
it's
not
just
okay.
full-blown racism.
Yeah, it's certainly not okay. I guess the big thing for me is like, because a while back there was this, I was thinking about trying to buy a property, which was a foolish thing to begin with. And to be clear, I've not bought a property, and I will never buy a property because I can't afford it.
It's on the way back down now, though. So
yeah,
it's fine,
so maybe bring on the crash, everybody.
Yeah.
I remember going to a couple of auctions and just seeing the amount of like mainland Chinese buyers at these auctions. This is like probably 18 months ago, and being like, "Well, this country's gone to the dogs, hasn't it? This is what's happened." And then like, you know, having to talk myself down off that very racist ledge.
Do you have any language skills, Chinese-wise?
Minimal. I went to Chinese school as a kid, and not heaps in that way. A funny story about that. In year 7, I did Mandarin in high school. I got put into the native speakers class because they were like, Hing, he'll have a crack. If anyone in my family does speak Chinese, they speak Cantonese, but this was Mandarin, so like there's basically no crossover. Yeah, I spent 6 months in this class, like which was taught in Mandarin, and me being like, I got nothing, dudes. I got no idea. It was so bad.
Do you have any grandparents that aren't Chinese?
No,
so it's all Chinese, 100 years.
I did a DNA test a while back. My parents bought it for me, which is weird for so many reasons.
Yeah.
Like they should know. So we did a DNA. I did a DNA test, and I'd never met any like white or European ancestors, but I'm 96% Chinese or something, and there's like 4% of Irish German descent in me, which I think is my like great grandparents' generation.
Macau.
And when you look at when you look at those photos, there's like it's like black and white photos are like and blurry photos. It's like hard to tell, but like you can guess that my like grandfather's grandmother might have been German or something, but she's still dressed in like Chinese gear because it's like, you know, it's like the 1910s in Sydney or whatever, you know.
And they were post gold rush. A lot of these.
Yeah. So my family came to Australia pre Gold Rush, I think. Well, portions of my family did, and then left Sydney to go to the Gold Rush. Yeah. That's my mum's dad's side. My mum's side, sort of Walgett Lightning Ridge folk. They came in about like the 1900s kind of thing, and then
the Opal Rush.
Yeah. And then my dad's family is mostly from Thursday Island up north in far north Queensland. And they left there during the war because they thought the Japanese were going to bomb them. So they've got no gold rush links. Yeah. Reasonable fear living in the tropical north.
Yeah, especially around that time.
Yeah.
This kind of all plays into this new program you're a part of on the SBS, which is Where Are You Really From?
Yeah.
Which obviously is a question you've been asked. And you play into that in the program, but people do say. I mean, at the top of the show, you just said, "Well, Lightning Ridge, Walgett, Thursday Island," and I guess the premise is you go into all these different regional ethnic enclaves around the country, which we actually do know exists when you really think about it.
Yeah, like the Chinese in Bendigo, or in the first series, the first season, we went to a group in Woolgoolga on the north coast of New South Wales, and there's a huge Punjabi Indian Sikh population there, and they've been there for like I think 130 years or something like that. And you think of yourself like, I grew up basically in Sydney. I'm a cosmopolitan guy. This isn't gonna faze me. And then you get there and it's like, these dudes with like huge beards and turbans surfing, and you're like, I haven't seen that before. That is an interesting thing to look at. That person and these people's stories are like really interesting and like. Yeah, it's just like you were talking about getting out of Sydney and stuff. It's like it's just these stories and things you don't know about. Like in the second series, which is just about to come out June 19 on SBS. We went to the Barossa Valley and we talked to like German migrants there from 150 years ago. Did you know Australia had its own German language? Like, I had no idea about that.
Almost like our own Afrikaans.
Yeah. It was almost like in America, they've got
Pennsylvania Dutch or something.
Yeah, with the Amish.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. There's like a whole like Australian, they call it Barossa Deutsch. There's like a whole Australian version of the German language that was spoken.
And is that still anywhere? Is there some old Omas and Oppas still using that?
A little bit here and there. Some people who are still alive grew up with that as their first language.
Right.
And there are like language classes now. There's sort of a language revival thing going on where people are speaking German and also as an offshoot of that the Barossa Deutsch as well. Yeah. But it's been studied a little bit.
Where else are you going on the second? So the first season was the Sikhs up in Woolgoolga, Whoopi for anyone.
Yes.
A beautiful town that's recently been destroyed by the bypass. Pacific bypass. Yes. Only class traders use the bypass, by the way. Go into town, buy a sandwich from these people.
Yeah.
Stop at the servo in town.
Yeah. They've got a KFC with 40 car parks. Come on. And
we went to Bendigo in Victoria to meet the Chinese people there who have the longest like ceremonial imperial like dragon in the world. Like this huge cool Easter parade dragon thing they've got.
I wonder where they keep that in the off season.
No, it's a museum. They have a museum just for the dragon. It's a whole but
the off season.
Yeah, because they bring it out for Easter and then it's like 330 days of the year. It's like what's it doing? Yeah, no, it's in
a museum.
It's in a museum. Nice. But it's quite funny when they have to bring it out because it's so long. The museum has to be custom built in like a spiral.
Yeah.
So when they take it out, it's like it's like trying to put toothpaste back in a tube. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just you've got to like edge it back in. Like you've got to watch like 300 people sort of back a backing a truck in, but it's a dragon.
I'm sure it's easy if you know how.
Yes. Yeah, it's a skill.
Heavy, rigid dragon license.
And we went to Toowoomba as well to talk to the South Sudanese population there. I think a lot of like city folk would think of Toowoomba as being like this redneck racist place because it's like country Queensland or whatever.
The Garden City.
Yeah.
It's heaven on earth.
Yeah. Well, also just like the fact that there is a thriving South Sudanese population there that is at odds with the media narrative of like the rest of Australia.
Sudanese are only in Blacktown and Melbourne, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's where it is, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's where they first kind of landed that wave of migration, and I think you'll find there's a lot of Sudanese community members that have a lot of love for John Howard, ironically.
Yeah.
Because that was when they came in.
Yeah. It's like, like, I love this Liberal government. Like, man, I got some news about this Liberal government. How they feel about you, dude?
It's not Howard's party anymore, man.
So, and then for the second series, we went to Ingham in far north Queensland to talk to the Italians there, the cane cutters. We went to the Barossa to talk to the Germans, as I said. We went to a town called Katanning in WA, which is like a sheep and wheat town, maybe 3.5, 4 hours out of Perth. And kind of an interesting thing about them is like a third of the population there are Malay Muslims from like the Christmas and Cocos Islands who came across to work in the abattoir like in the 70s and 60s and 70s, 80s. They built a mosque there a couple of decades ago, kind of before this like broad panic about Muslims had occurred in the West. And so there's just like this tiny country town with this like huge mosque that's like quite cool.
It's not even like one of those kind of corrugated iron mosques like Broken Hill. It's an actual like they built a temple, like a full sick building, right? And again, people who've never been to these places or been to places like this wouldn't necessarily think this about these places, you know. So it's cool that this town called Katanning has now like something like 43 different nationalities there, and they speak like 28 different languages. It's like the stats are crazy, and the town's only of like 6,000 people. Like it's very few people. And then the fourth place we went to Western Sydney. There's a huge Assyrian population in Fairfield that we wanted to talk about because Fairfield has taken in like more refugees and migrants than basically any other place in any other local government area. Yeah. I think in the current way we talk about asylum seekers and stuff, it was just interesting to hear what a lot of these people who have come here think, and also the struggles that these communities deal with, because like having an influx of people is an infrastructure problem that needs to be addressed. Particularly in Australia, where we have a habit of bringing like migrants from certain countries, but from both sides of the war in that country, and putting them in the same suburb. It's happened time and time again. The Vietnamese, the Lebanese, it's just like, didn't we migrate away from this particular community? Why are we living next door to them?
Guys, we had to. I mean, a lot of the South Sudanese who we spoke to in Toowoomba talk about that as well, because that's a war that's been raging on for decades. And they're like, yeah, people talk about us as Sudanese. It's like, nah, we left Sudan.
Yeah.
It's made our own country and had to flee because of the war, the migration patterns of Australia's long-term policies are they are baffling.
Yeah,
they are
yeah.
off the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In your research, did you find anything that was so completely out of the ordinary that just blew you away?
Aside from the Malay Muslims in the middle of Western Australia.
I guess a lot of people would know about this, but I didn't know about this. I didn't know about all the Nazis in Australia. Do you know about the Nazis in Australia?
No.
There's a lot of Nazis in Australia during the...
we see them at the rallies with Fraser Anning.
Yeah.
Yeah, so back in the 30s and 40s.
So like real Nazis?
Yeah, back in the 30s
right.
and 40s. There were there was an Australian Nazi party. There was before Australia really got into the war, there were a very, very small minority of, I'm talking dozens of people, not hundreds, of German identifying people in Australia who had a lot of Nazi sympathies because, that's I guess the thing they missed from home and didn't realize that, I don't know, the complex nature of what, also because they're just hateful Nazis, I guess, as well, right? But the complex nature of what was going on, I don't know these people. But there's pictures from Adelaide and stuff of the Nazi flag hanging next to the Australian flag at a Boy Scout meeting.
Right.
One of the things I saw was just a Nazi flag hanging on a gum tree. That's that's weird.
Invokes a feeling of some sort of confused nostalgia.
Yeah. So that was probably the
That is weird.
the weirdest thing that, but obviously it makes sense because it's the world was that way in that time. But that was pretty full on.
Yeah.
And you couldn't get cancelled because they didn't have Twitter.
I've unearthed these tweets by this Nazi, and he said some really racist things 7 years ago.
I think in the Second World War, the first clash that Australia had with another country in that war was the Germans in New Guinea.
Really?
I think England was like, all right, can you go up there and
sort them out?
Can you get rid of those tropical Nazis? And then when you're done with that, can you come over to North Africa and get rid of
desert Nazis?
the desert Nazis? And then it's like, oh, you've got to go and get rid of
the Japanese from Papua New Guinea now.
Yeah.
But back to PNG. Yeah.
And the other thing I didn't know heaps about was the internment that a lot of Italian people went through in the Second World War. I didn't realize how sweeping it was. They just the state cops in Queensland just went through towns and just were like, all right, you're an Italian man aged between 18 and 60, get in the van, you're going to a camp.
Yeah, and it's just on the fact that their last name ends in a
Is
vowel.
an O or an I or something.
Yeah. That was wild because there's been a lot of Italian names, prominent Italian names for many years in Australia. So, Italians were actually part of the national identity, but just not for those couple of years.
Yeah, and it's the hurt that is felt intergenerationally from that. The talking to young people who are the grandkids of those people who are interned or, who are, getting on, who are in their middle age now, but we're talking about how they don't trust the cops still because their earliest memories of the cops are them hauling away their parents and stuff. And it's I'd have issues with the cops as well.
Authority. Yeah. Oh, well, and you look at Ron Barassi was a famous kind of AFL family. There was Ron Barassi and Ron Barassi Jr. And around that time, you know what I mean? One of the most prominent AFL players had an Italian name. People just ignored that guy. And then it was more about the small town, the cane cutters. And actually, it's funny how you're saying about the Nazis because I know in North Queensland, post-election where everyone was like, oh, no, it's so surprising that the coalition won all these swing seats down in the Whitsunday booths and all that kind of stuff. Because back in the day, that was the only part of Australia that ever elected a member of the Communist Party to...
really?
It was a state government, and it was all the Italians post-internment, and also because they were on those kind of indentured wages, similar to the... Because they were, not exactly white at that time. Yeah, and so, that's gone a full turnaround from there, and they're like, that is actually a turnaround when we actually had communists living up in North Queensland, and now they're like, yeah, George Christensen seems like my guy. Did you? So you didn't get to Broome?
No,
Japan?
I think Broome will be. Look, if SBS somehow finds money in this current political climate to fund a third season,
Yep.
Broome's on the cards. There's like loads of places I want to go.
Yeah.
Have you heard about the Australian migrated population in South America?
Yeah. What's that country called?
In Paraguay.
Yeah. There's a Paraguayan Australian enclave there. I would love to go and do a story about that. Like that'll be like the series finale. We'll finally wrap this thing up.
You might have to go with a commercial network
Yeah,
to that one there. You know, there's only so much. A certain type of distance that public money can get, you know. I think
I'll get me to New Zealand. I can get a boat from there.
Yeah, especially now that the ABC and the SBS have had their coffers gouged out again by the government. So I guess
Yeah, I mean, but look, funding my trip to Paraguay may not have been the best use of taxpayer funds. I'm willing to admit it. I'm willing to say it right now. Flying me to South America, maybe you should have spent that money on the 7:30 report.
What is that? What is that enclave called over there? Because I remember there's videos you can find of it, and their accent is almost like trapped in time. Oh. It's called New Australia, actually. We've just been handed the phone.
Yeah, it's
New Australia was a utopian socialist settlement.
It's
in
also a white
Paraguay.
supremacist thing as well.
no wonder it failed.
Yeah. Utopian socialists who all have to be white. Okay.
Fucking inbred.
The blind leading the blind in Paraguay.
Like Damper, like celebratory Damper and stuff, and they sing like Waltzing Matilda and like old campfire songs and like Banjo Paris and stuff or whatever. It's real strange that that's happening in Paraguay.
Especially considering it happened like when Australia was so infantile. They're like, all right, we've got enough of a culture to export. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I literally think it was people like leaving because it's like the Lightning Ridge, right? Of South America. They're just like, I don't want to be found. I'm going to Paraguay.
We at the Batuta Advocate are proud to announce the good people at Baxter Footwear have signed on as the new sponsors for the Desert Rock FM studios.
Baxter is a fifth-generation Australian-owned business which has been hand-making boots and shoes since 1850.
Much longer than the other brand of footwear made famous by the Young Liberals.
So thank you, Baxter. Now back to the show.
Tell us what else you kind of found. Like the North Queensland Italians in Ingham, a lot of them kind of ended up in Townsville. The North Queensland Cowboys, you look in the honour roll, a
lot of Italian names.
Yeah, a lot of Italian names up there. And of course now in the Katter Party, there's a couple of those descendants. Nick Demetto, MP for Ingham, I believe.
Yeah, no, he's around there. He works with jet skis, I believe.
Yeah, jet ski retailer.
He's got a great...
That's very on brand for a minute.
That's a North Queensland dream.
Yeah.
He's got a...
Jet ski hire.
I think, if I'm thinking of the right guy, I think I met him at a thing at... when we were up there, and he showed me his Instagram, and I think he's a kind of a ripped dude who posts a lot of gym selfies, right? Yeah, that's the guy I'm thinking
He's
of.
the new gen for the Katter Party.
Yeah, exactly.
Showed you his Instagram. All right. We'll get Nick Demetto on here, I reckon.
A real friendly guy. The kind of funny, cool thing about Ingham was, I think of my Italian friends, I think of the Italianness as being like a really strong cultural thing. Like Italians are like so proud of being Italian, right? But no culture is stronger than country Queensland, right? So like, let me explain this little thing. We went to watch this, like there was like this kind of like ballet that the town was happening in the town. So we went to watch that, and it's just like beautiful Italian ballet. There's like opera being sung. And again, as like a weird discord, the guy next to me was like in a fucking bintang singlet, drinking a Bundy and Coke and being like, fucking sick, dude.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, of course this is like melting perfectly and everyone's happy and it's cool.
And the rest of the country thinks those people are rednecks. You know?
They're watching a ballet and it's fun.
Yeah.
I haven't been to the ballet in years,
Getting that limoncello alcopop.
Oh, can I tell you about this what they described as an authentic Italian cocktail I had in Ingham? It was amaretto. Like a sort of a bitters, like an Angostura or something. I don't know, like a bitters. And that was like maybe a third of the glass, and the rest of the glass was just 4x gold.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, yeah, this rules, dude. This rules.
Oh, that's the North Queensland.
But that'd be kind of nice.
Yeah, it was good.
Actually, yeah.
It was good. It was like a...
hydrating too.
Yeah, it was very chilled. It was they had ice in it as well, so it was like a weird iced beer. Anyway, yeah, it was cool.
Can you now talk us through another side project you're working on, which was low-level electoral fraud, which you Ended up getting a phone call. You're in trouble with the law again, Hing. God damn it.
So this was my ill-fated run for the Senate in the recent election, where I thought it would be funny to try and become a senator because, you know, even though they changed a few of the laws regarding how the preference deals work and stuff, I thought, like, look, I have a shot at this. Why not? And so we made a couple of little stupid videos thinking that nothing would come of it. I'd run and whatever.
What was your party called?
It was the One Asian Party, which we started because, do you remember when that NRA scandal happened a couple of months ago with One Nation?
Yeah.
Well, I was pitching sketches at work and I was like, oh, let's just do a fun parody of that. And I thought of this idea of just that pun came into my brain. And then we couldn't find a way to make it work with the NRA thing because it was like too many layers. It's like, are you making fun of guns? Are you making fun of the corruption of that? Are you making fun of... And so we just kind of sat on it. And then a couple of weeks later, we thought, why don't we just see if we can make a campaign video for me to run for Senate as just as a stupid joke, whatever. Off the back of that, a friend of mine was like, I'll make a website for you about that. Like, that seems pretty funny. And then we put the video out thinking, this won't go anywhere. But then 40 minutes after we put the video out, it happened to be the same day that Scott Morrison called the election.
All right.
And so just in the media coverage that day, when journalists who are, as you all know, hungry to literally talk about anything that is at all interesting, they would do, like, I don't know, half a dozen papers or whatever, wrote up these things of the election, and then kind of mentioned this, like, weird comedian who was running with this, like, stupid One Asian Party thing. And so it just...
So it was a one-man party.
Yes, which is...
One Asian party.
Yes.
One Asian man party.
I was the only member of it.
And what were the policies?
Well, I didn't have any, because I'm an idiot and I didn't really think anything through. So I said in the video, I was like, just ask me what you want. I'll do anything. What do you want? Like, I don't know.
Oh, so it was crowd-funded.
Crowdsourced. Kind of crowdsourced.
Crowdsourced policies. Did you get any good ones?
We had in the end, over 2,000 people got into contact with us. And maybe... half of them were like, legalize weed. And another guy was like, make gozleme or gozleme or whatever, the national food of Australia. I'm like, yeah, that rules. Everyone loves gozleme. But then, like, half of them were like serious things. Like, people were like terrified about climate change and like, hey, we need to fix the Great Barrier Reef and like all that kind of, like, and people were just sending earnest policies to me. I felt so bad about that because I'm like, guys, I'm an idiot. Like, thank you so much for doing this, but I'm a moron. Yeah. And so that kind of got out of hand because then, as you know what a media storm's like, it just sort of like spirals in on itself. So like the project then called, which I've never done the project before, and they were like, oh, do you want to come on? I was like, yes, I would love to go on the project to talk about this stupid prank.
Yeah.
You know, I did like a bunch of other media, and then it got to the point where we had to actually register the thing with the AEC, and to do that, I don't know if you've ever registered a candidacy before. You've got to go down to the AEC with money. You got to give them $2,000 and stuff,
and you've got to get 500 or so.
It's 100 people to. Getting 100 people to sign, I think is fine. Registering a party is 500 people. That was harder because they'd already called the election, so we couldn't register me as a party.
Yeah.
But getting the signatures was fine. Doing all the paperwork was fine. And then when we talked to the AEC, they were like, yeah, there are so many reasons why you can't do this. So then we went back and forth with them for a couple of weeks trying to get it sorted. But at
this stage, did you feel like a real kind of second wind of kind of actual political ambition?
I was like, as soon as soon as someone tells you can't do something, that really hardens my resolve to be like, no, fuck you, I can do this. Yeah. Like, the worst reason to ever run for politics is spite. But just to spite the AEC. So we kept trying, and eventually what it came down to was there's in the section 44 of the Constitution where it says these are the reasons you can or cannot run. Because of the whole debacle that's been happening the last couple of years, they make you pre-fill those eligibility things.
Yeah.
And they are things like you can't be a dual citizen, or you can't have another nationality or another citizenship. You can't be bankrupt. And then one of them, you can't be treasonous, is the thing they say. Yeah. No treasonous senators.
Damn.
Yeah.
None of us would pass that.
And then one of them was you can't have an office of profit under the crown. And so the argument was, because I work at SBS, I can't, you know.
That was what they got you on.
Well, that was what they said. And that's
what they picked.
So I spoke to a lawyer about this, and they were like, look, I reckon you've actually got a pretty good argument at this, because an office, it's technical legal bullshit, but like an office would have to exist without the person who holds it. Yeah. So like a treasurer is an office because this organization would have a treasurer whether you're there or not, right? There is no like office of like satirist at the feed or some shit. Like that's not that's not a thing. So they were like, I think you've got a pretty good argument about that. So we said that to the AEC, and they were like, yeah, but the other problem is you've been playing some of these segments on government television. And I was like, yes, we have. And they're like, yeah, that's definitely illegal. I'm like, all right, well, that's fair enough.
All right. So
that was the thing that really put the nail on the
Well,
coffin.
there has been like a bit of a track record around the world. I mean, there's the 5-star sort of movement in Italy. And there's the president of Ukraine now is a comedian.
Yeah,
He's like, fuck, I'm going to have to dissolve the parliament now.
Yeah, well, because he so he was a guy who played the president on TV for many years and then just got elected.
I tried to read that article. That got very meta. So
Yeah.
this guy played a character who was a school teacher who
then gave an impassioned speech and then became president off the back of that in the sitcom.
Yeah.
And then the actor, not the character, decided to try and play that out, a version of that out in real life, and he ran for president, using a lot of the rhetoric and stuff that his character had used on the show.
And won.
Yeah. Now, he is the president of the Ukraine, so this actor, and he's fucking anti-Putin.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
right. This will get interesting.
You've got this actor, right, who's gone from being on like a small TV show in the Ukraine to now being like, I'm going to stand up to Putin. And it's like, well, it's the most surrealist fucking Twilight Zone shit. I mean, like, there is absolutely no way that this guy is capable of handling Putin at all.
No. He's a sitcom actor.
On any level.
It's more just like, the I mean, I don't know a lot about, Russian, Ukrainian politics, but I imagine that the arm of the Russian state is probably deep into Ukraine at this point, and their influence is held throughout. But yeah, you're right. He just dissolved the parliament to run parliamentary elections as well.
It's like, I'm sick of all the corruption. It's like, well, you're in
Sack
the
everyone. Well, it's actually not that far off a reality TV star becoming the president. In America, anything can happen. Darren Hinch getting into the Senate.
Well, he's out of the Senate.
He's out of the Senate now. Well, they changed those rules. Yeah.
But the other thing that happened was people were worried that I was accepting donations and that this was like a get-rich-quick scheme for me. People offered to donate me money, but like I didn't. It's not like I had a moral reason to not accept. I just didn't have the technical ability to. I wasn't trying to do it in the legality, so I didn't take any. But then, there was a lot of officials who were asking me a lot of questions about that. So it got pretty.
So you got a phone call from the pigs.
From the pigs. Someone
pigs.
claiming to the AFP at least, saying, asking me about donations not accepted and stuff, and you always think to yourself I'm going to stand up to these people as soon as the cops call me, and then I immediately crumbled and was like, yes sir, no sir, I'm sorry. I don't want to be in trouble.
That's why the Ashfield criminal gang cut you loose.
Yeah, he's he needs a squealer. He's an absolute squealer.
Sings like Sinatra.
Did you get any anti-One Asian Party stuff on WeChat?
I'm not allowed to register WeChat because I'm not a Chinese citizen, and I don't have a Chinese citizen to do it like the major parties do.
Yeah.
I will say that it's weird. The most vitriolic stuff I got, I thought maybe the alt-right and whatnot would come out against me. They didn't care, but it was a lot of the lefties were the ones who really who really got annoyed at me. I got an email from a guy from the Socialist Alliance being like, mate, you've not got a chance, so just redirect all your preferences to the Socialist Alliance. And I was like, yeah, I got some news for you, buddy. The Socialist Alliance and I have the same amount of senators in the Australian Senate.
You got no chance. How good's that for negotiating? You have no chance. Just give me your preferences. It's all good.
And then the other thing I had was there was a couple of Green staffers got in contact with me. Not actual politicians, but some Green staffers got in contact with me and were like, you running this campaign will hurt the chances of Maureen Faruqi getting re-elected in New South Wales. And they were like, and she's the only South Asian or the only Asian member of New South Wales Senate or whatever. So you need to think about what you're doing. I'm like, that's not my fault. If anything, if I get in and she doesn't, that's not a loss for diversity in the Senate. Anyway, she did fine.
I would have loved to have seen those white guys telling you to think about Asian people.
Yeah, exactly.
Now tell us a little bit about Stormy Daniels.
Are you guys familiar with the app Cameo, where celebrities will say hello to you for money?
Yeah. No, there was one about George Pell and Flavor Flav.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So they stitched up Flavor Flav just for the
goes out to my man George Pell.
Oh, that was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay strong, man.
So there's an app called Cameo where celebrities will do shout outs to happy birthday to Sam or whatever, or congratulations on your retirement, Alex, or whatever. And it's, it costs up to $1,000 for like real top tier celebrities. And I went through that thing like, oh man, it'd be good to get some funny celebrity endorsements. And I sent out maybe like 20 asking people to do it. And the only one that came back that was real good was, the only one who came back and said, yeah, I'll do this was Stormy Daniels.
All right.
It was $250, so it's not cheap.
Trump's mistress.
Yes, exactly. The adult film star who had an affair with Donald Trump for many years, or for many months, I don't know.
For many dollars.
Yes, for many dollars. And then was paid hush money by Donald Trump to keep quiet about it. And then, again, just spilt all the beans.
Yeah.
And so she came out and sent this 15-second thing where she told me to keep fighting the good fight. And so, it's just quite cool. But what was quite funny about that is afterwards, the Cameo people the people who run the app got in touch with me and were like, oh, we're trying to sign people up in Australia to be like celebrities on Cameo. You should totally sign up. And I was like, I don't think anyone's going to want this. But then I thought, you know what? Even on the off chance that like one person wants this, it's an easy way to make some money. So I was like, Stormy Daniels charges $250? Like, so I don't know what's a shout out from Michael Hing worth? Maybe like $50? And the lady was like, I think you're probably overpricing it a bit. I think like $7 to $10. I'm like, I don't know if this is really worth my time.
Put my name to this.
That's how much my soul is worth. $7 to $10 in the internet marketplace.
That just sounds like it wasn't worth the email. Like, you know what I mean? From her end particularly.
Yeah.
Now tell us, you're on the other guy. What else have you got coming up? Have you got a tour coming up?
I'm sort of writing an hour now that I'll tour next year, so 2020. So that I'll do all the comedy festivals, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide, Brisbane in 2020. Yeah, right now I'm just working on stuff. The other guy season 2 is going to come out on Stan. If you don't want to pay for it, just hit me up. I'll send you my details. You can log in with mine.
Still counts as numbers. Still counts as streams.
I think the login is just like, I think it might be like michael.hing at Stan or something. It's the login. I can't remember. Anyway, feel free to hit me up with that.
That's how we're going to promo this podcast. Michael Hing shares his Stan account details. His login.
On the off chance you wanted to watch Paperback Hero with Hugh Jackman and Claudia Carvin.
If you want to watch the 21 films leading up to the Avengers Endgame.
You can't keep up with that.
But yeah, the big thing I work on week to week is the show called The Feed on SBS Viceland. That's like the thing that basically all of my energy goes into when I'm not making regional documentaries about multiculturalism.
Well, we look forward to season 2. What was the release of that?
Season 2 of Where You Really From comes out, June 19th. It's a Wednesday evening, 8:30 on SBS. Please watch that because sweet mercy, I want to go to Paraguay, and we need a third season to do that. Yes.
And if you have a community that you think might be interestingly multicultural, please send through a DM to Michael Hing.
Yeah. Hit me up on Instagram, and I'll come to your town and ask you about your personal family stories and make your parents cry or something in an emotional television interview.
There is an interesting ethnic enclave in Western Victoria. I'm trying to find the name of it.
Cool.
It's called Nihil.
Uh-huh.
In regional Victoria, and it has a lot of Karen refugees.
So the Karen people, they
Korean,
are what?
Korean.
They are one of the 43 ethnic groups living in Katanning.
Right.
And they are a Christian minority group from former Burma, now known as Myanmar. But the Koreans still refer to it as Burma.
Yeah.
Because they were Christian, they really got along with the British when the British were there, and so they got real cozy with them. And so when the revolution happened, a lot of the non-Christian, non-British people saw them as like, being allied to the Brits and whatnot.
Yeah,
and so
right.
that was one of the angles of the ethnic tension and whatnot.
Right. So they're not just in. I'm going to get in trouble for this, but it's the town's pretty hard to say. Nihil, Victoria.
They're not just in Nihil. They're also in Katanning. There's a community of them in Perth, and they are living in Katanning as well. But it's a I think there's maybe 12,000 Korean in Australia, something like that, in total. But they are I sat through a 3-hour Korean language church service. Which was very little English when I was in Katanning, and just because when you're making TV, you've got to look. You never want just one shot to Get Out, where it's just you looking bored at people enjoying something, because it's so rude. It's so rude. But at the same time, it's so hard to be interested when you literally can't understand anything.
And it's church as
and
well.
it's churches. Like, church is already quite boring. I grew up going to a lot of church services. I know they're quite boring.
Yeah.
Then it's in another language on top of that. And anyway.
They got a few shots of you looking interested anyway.
Yes. Well, I maintained a smile throughout the whole thing. And then I found out later on, I was like, of course they weren't shooting me. Of course they weren't taking pictures of me during that. Like, I'm not the interesting thing in that. They're just filming the church service, which is the interesting thing.
There's also, we need to get you out to Gatton, Lockyer Valley, big German community out there. Shane Webke, descendant of the Lockyer Valley Germans. And also up there in the Burnett, in northwest of Brisbane, obviously was where a lot of Lutheran kind of Scandinavians ended up. And the great Sir Joe Bioki-Peterson is a product of that, the peanut farmers up there.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Even though he was born in New Zealand.
Yeah, but that's where a lot of the Scandinavians kind of ended up, and they obviously became quite conservative Queenslanders and took over the National Party and really built Queensland. So.
I think there's something I'm interested in doing, because we haven't been to Tassie yet. I'd love to go to Tassie. I think there's a lot of Dutch communities in Tasmania I'd like to go to. There's like Basque people as well, who have congregated in regional Victoria as well. Regional Queensland, sorry, as well. Yeah. So I'd be interested to go visit a lot more places.
And a lot of Slavic, Central Coast, New South Wales, and actually Cairns has a big Slavic community too.
Huh.
The Stefanovics.
Another Australian icon.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Hing.
Oh, thanks, dudes. It's been such a pleasure.
Look forward to seeing season 2. Looking forward to seeing your new tour.
Yeah. Excellent. Talk to you guys soon.